On our drive today, we're going to talk a little political philosophy on tariffs, a hot topic in the news since the Trump administration is using them as a yuge negotiating tactic. Historically speaking, tariffs have been an easy way for politicians to protect domestic industries, especially in manufactured goods, and to protect and create jobs for millions of registered voters. Sounds like a win for many politicians, right? But Trump is taking it beyond the traditional uses, essentially using it as a foreign policy cudgel to accomplish a wide variety of goals. He's promising immediate benefits to American workers by reducing cheap foreign competition, creating a level economic playing field, and reducing or eliminating income taxation. But what might be the longer-term costs of this kind of tariff policy, particularly potential hidden effects? And how should nations like Canada, Mexico, and China respond effectively to the Trump policy? Well, we know from history that there can be long-term economic damage from protectionist tariffs, as made famous by Ben Stein's monologue in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. In it, he talked about anyone, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. The result of the act was that instead of improving the condition of American workers, it deepened the Great Depression. Of course, we need to understand that this move by the U.S. government wasn't done in a vacuum. Other countries, such as France, had raised their tariffs as well in the hope of increasing government revenue to pay debts from the First World War and to ward off economic ruin. Canada increased their tariffs on a lot of agricultural products during this time, mainly hurting American farmers who were already struggling, which included my great-grandfather. While U.S. manufacturing employment temporarily increased, it soon faltered as the Depression deepened. While this cycle of retaliatory tariff policies wasn't the sole or even main cause of the Great Depression, it didn't help resolve the situation either, making some parts of the global economy worse off. When we look at tariff policies, it's understandable that politicians make economic decisions that produce immediate, visible, and beneficial effects for the voting public. From a populist perspective, they can also gain political benefit from looking like they're for the common citizen, the so-called working man. In their zeal to gain political advantage, they may fail to account for the potential cascading negative effects that remain hidden until it's too late, the long-term effects of a tough tariff policy. So let's take a moment to consider these hidden long-term effects. First of all, we can easily see how tariffs act as a tax on consumers who are forced to pay higher prices for imported goods or their domestic substitutes. What may be unseen is how these higher prices, aka inflation, subtly affect household budgets and can cause a reduction in spending in other areas of the economy. In our modern economy with global supply chains, businesses that rely on imported raw materials or components face higher input costs, which will make them less competitive, both domestically and internationally. For some products, tariffs will create a cascading effect, with tariffs stacking on top of tariffs, wildly raising the price of goods where no 100% domestically made alternative products exist. Then we have the issue of retaliatory tariffs, since, as we have seen, tariff policies don't exist in isolation. When one country imposes tariffs, almost all trading partners will retaliate in kind, which leads to a downward trend in international trade. This results in lost import-export opportunities, a reduction in foreign investment, and weakened trade relationships, perhaps even a weakening of general foreign relations. Another consideration is how protectionist policies shield domestic industries from competition and, as a result, reduce the incentive to innovate or improve efficiency. One example of this is how protectionist policies at U.S. shipping ports have prevented them from keeping up with modern technologies in logistics and shipping. Over time, such protection leads to complacent stagnation and a decline in productivity. What we may not see is the opportunity cost, the loss of the growth potential that could have been realized by a freer market. We also should be concerned about how tariffs can distort market incentives. Since resources, such as labor and raw materials, aren't allocated efficiently, industries may end up not being competitive, especially when they lose the blanket of government protection. The unseen and unintended consequences could well lead to a kind of long-term structural weakness that makes an economy more vulnerable to external shocks. So coming back to our moment in history, is Trump just doing some kind of art of the deal trickery to finagle a better outcome in international trade for Americans? Is he going to actually replace the income tax with stiff tariffs? Is he risking taking his economic nationalism too far? My take is that it's too early to tell, although Trump is known for both his wheeling and dealing capabilities, as well as making over-the-top big and beautiful statements, especially to provoke reactions from the press and opponents. Which will win out in this case is anyone's guess, but I'm hoping any trade disputes will be short-lived for the sake of the economy. What should other countries do, though? Should they retaliate with higher tariffs on goods, potentially hurting their own economy in the process? Or should they let the Wookiee win? If I was advising them, I'd tell them to unilaterally lower or even eliminate their tariffs, thus accomplishing two goals. First, such a move would in all likelihood reduce costs for consumers and businesses in their country. This would serve to make its industries more competitive internationally and attract investment by removing trade barriers and demonstrating a commitment to free trade. Secondly, in kind of an economic jujitsu, it would turn the tables on Trump, making him look like an opponent to free trade. By not falling into Trump's trap of a trade war most likely unwinnable, they can come out ahead, even if it means appearing weak in some ways, at least from the outset. But I suspect that they'll just do the same old, and go with a retaliatory trade policy that will have awful economic and geopolitical repercussions for many of us. What are your thoughts on Trump's tariffs? Good thing? Bad thing? Or somewhere in between? Let me know in the comments. I always like to hear from you if you agree or disagree. And please do the like and subscribe thing. I appreciate it, and YouTube's sneaky AI algorithms appreciate it too.